Hey, it's Barry.
Hello, it's Nate.
It's Bryan.
And welcome back to the Collecti-Bros podcast. This episode on Is It Worth It? Ys the Oath in Felghana for the PSP. On these episodes, we go into 5 categories: story, gameplay, sound, graphics, and price and collectability, and determine if the game is worth the price after playing it. This game, a little bit of backstory on it. It is actually a remake of Ys 3 Wanderers of Ys. I think it was called Ys Wanderers. It's the... printing release history of this is kind of crazy, but it is a remake of that game, which it originally came out, at least in North America, in 1991, 1992 on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis, and it was very poorly received. The first 2 games, Ys 1 and 2, came out on the TurboGrafx, and kind of revolutionized action RPGs in a way because of the platform. Like, we didn't have so much at that time period. It was bump mechanics, it was top-down view, it was very, very well-received game. So going from a top-down bump mechanic style, it instead used side-scrolling platformer presentation, because that's kind of what was popular at the time, especially on the Super and the Genesis. Auto attack was removed, and the player actually had to push a button to make an attack. So in the original 1 and 2, you basically would kind of stick your sword out in front of you and just literally bump into an enemy, and it would kind of have a slight, knockback a little bit. So you'd hit them and they'd bump away from you, and if they hit you, you'd bump away from them. That's why it was called, bump mechanic. But that's kind of how the game functioned, and in this one, you have to actually push a button. And they were like, oh man, we gotta work to play our game, I guess. I don't know. So it definitely broke away from the mechanics of 1 and 2, and Entertainment Weekly criticized it specifically for the inability to control the storyline and described the combat as tedious and repetitive. I haven't actually played the original, and I am curious to play it after playing the PSP one to kind of see. Originally, I actually wanted to play the Genesis one, but I don't have the time. So I would like to play that one at some point to personally compare them. As far as the remake, that one came out in 2005. And it slightly modifies but greatly expands on the game at the same time. So it expands the dungeons, it extends the gameplay time. The original side-scroller was also replaced with a 3D game engine, which is based on the one that's used in Ys 4, the Ark of Napishtim. That one came out on the PSP and the PS2, I believe. It's also the same engine that is used in Trails in the Sky, if anyone's familiar with that, Legend of Heroes. So Legend of Heroes Ys is all under the Falcom umbrella. Dragon Slayer, if anybody... Falcom has been around for a very long time. So they're very prevalent. And it's not really one of those companies where you hear of that's it's like Nintendo or it's Bethesda. It's not like one of those kind of name companies, but Falcom has a very, very long history and a very set one in. I don't see them going away.
They have a pretty strong built-in fan base, dude.
Yeah.
The longevity of it alone will give you that.
As far as localization, Xseed localized it, and they actually paid to use a fan translation that had been previously produced for a PC version just to save on time. So already fan translated, and they paid them to go ahead and use that for the PC release. I believe that is the same as the PSP one. I don't think they made any alterations to it. And then there is a remaster of this game coming out for the Switch called Ys Memoir, The Oath in Felghana. It did come out this year in April for Japan. I don't think there's any news on when it's coming out in the US. So if after this episode, if you're interested in playing this game, it will come out on the Switch at some point. It is available on the Steam store for $15. So there's that. It says it has a higher quality textures and character illustrations, and it has the optional ability to use the soundtracks from the PC 8801 and the X68000.
That's cool.
So, because Wanderers from Ys like came out on those two originally, I believed, and then it got ported to TurboGrafx. It got ported to like
MX2.
7 different things. Yeah. It got ported to a lot of different systems.
Like Japanese systems, obviously.
But as far as, North America, it was Genesis and Super, and that was 2 or 3 years after initial release.
You're lucky to get that, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I think this was the first. No, we got the TurboGrafx one. I lied.
The 3 people that had a TurboGrafx.
TurboGrafx CD. Even harder to get that TurboGrafx.
Yeah,
CD.
that's true. It was CD. So that's all I have on that. If you guys have anything.
No, I was just impressive that Falcom, like, they've done a good job of bringing stuff lately. Like we've talked about before when your pickups because you're sick of having to buy them all. But it's cool that they've been around for so long that they actually seem like they care enough about their fans to like give us some games that we never got and stuff. So like even this game, look, they're remastering it now on Switch. So like this is the 3rd time they've kind of give this game some TLC. So
and they've done a really great job.
Honestly, this one didn't really need TLC. I think it got remastered because of the love of the community. A lot of people consider this one and 8 the best of the series. Excuse me. This one and 8, especially 8 is more of like a 3D platformer. It's not the same style as this one, but these 2 are widely considered as the best ones. So I'm not really surprised that they would choose to quote unquote remaster this one for a new release.
Just hats off to them. There's not a lot of companies that care enough about their fans to do that. So.
No. Especially when you have to go through the extra process of localizing something.
Yeah, I was going to say, shout out to them for actually localizing it. They brought a ton of their games over here that usually would have a predominantly, Eastern market. So very cool.
And I think like the times have changed, in the 90s and early 2000s, like it didn't make sense for them financially to do that much work to send it over here because it costs so much money in order to do that for a market that, we have to make another language for an entire game. We're not going to do that. So I think the East sees a lot of money to be had in the West for their games, and that's why it's happening so much more frequently. Like, there's a game that's made, at least as a larger Japanese studio, that's not going to be, at some point, translated over here. Their current Nordic, I believe it's called, is out in Japan, but it is definitely coming out in the US, so it's not a question of, like, if, but is when. It's just, we're like, when, so I can go on your website and pre-order yet another thing this year. Thank you. Rolling out of that, we're going to go into the story. So the E-Series is interesting because it's not necessarily you have to play one to play another one that might be... I mean, there's 11, 12 games. We never got the 5th one in North America. The 5th is the only one that we don't have. Everything else at some point in time has been localized and put out in some way. For example, the newest one coming out, 12, is actually set before this one. Before the 3rd one. So it's not like they're in any order. You can kind of treat it almost like Final Fantasy, where each one is kind of their own thing. This one does have an overall theme. It's got the same character. Aldal Kristen is the main character, and he's in all of them, except for Origin. He's not in Origin. That one's set 1,000 years before the first game. So, he's not been born yet. But this game is set 3 years after the events of 1 and 2, and if I remember correctly, 1 through 4 or 5 are kind of in a story arc. Not necessarily you need to play them all to understand it, but if you play them all, you'll see the overall picture. So, you don't need to play 1 and 2 to play this game. Neither Nate nor Bryan played 1 and 2 before playing this game.
Yep.
So, it is set 3 years after the events of 1 and 2, and if you really want to know, it just kind of sets up where they were before this game and what they did, but it has no prevalence in this story.
Yeah, it's something I didn't know going into this series, which is a series I've wanted to explore for a really long time, but Barry explained to me that, hey, you don't have to, and I was like, well, damn, I would have played these games longer, but there's always like little hints and stuff to like, so you can, there's always kind of a character that they're talking to that kind of fills you in as the player of what happened before. Like, I obviously didn't play the first two, but I get to how certain characters met each other because they were talking to a different character about it and stuff. So there's always kind of someone to fill you in what's going on.
Yeah, I never felt like I truly missed, huge chunks of character development or anything from not playing the other two games. They do a really good job of filling characters out and honestly expanding on it, even if you haven't played this. I mean, especially, I don't want to steal your thunder or anything, but especially Doggy, like, so much is built on him in this particular game that probably didn't show in the first two games without playing it. So it is interesting how they do that. It's very cool.
Doggy isn't really... Him and Aldol's relationship isn't really explained other than they traveled together and they're friends, and you don't really get the backstory of how they met, but it's not necessary. Like, this game doesn't leave anything to be desired of being like, oh, I wish I would have known how they met and became friends. Like, it's not even a thing in the story. Mm-hmm. It's just already set as, like, they're friends, they're going back to Doggy's hometown, basically.
Right.
Not really a rhyme or reason why that may have happened in the previous games. I mean, basically in this one, they visit Felghana. It's rumored to be under attack by monsters, and that's where Doggy is from. And he's like, oh, I want to go check on Redmont. And Redmont's his hometown. So they go back, and I believe it is an island. So they have to go back from the mainland on a boat, go to the island, and first things first, you got to save this girl from getting attacked by monsters. And this girl ends up being one of Doggy's childhood friends, Elena. Is it Elena or Elena? I can't remember.
I think it's Elena.
Elena?
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I played this. And, you go back and you find out that she's, her and Doggy haven't seen each other in a long time. And she's like, hey, my brother's been missing for 6 months. Like, I don't know what happened to him. And the town is kind of in disarray. They're like, hey, our mayor's trapped in a mine. Can you please go help our mayor? And so we're, Doggy's like, this is my hometown. I got to find out what's happening here. Like, I got to find out what happened to, Chester, who's Elena's brother that's been missing. You go into the mine, you rescue the mayor, you find out the mayor sucks.
Kind of a doofus.
He's like kind of mistreating the town. You kind of got to figure out why.
Most politicians.
Yeah. And before we go to the mine, what's really cool about this game to me is, like, there's really only one town in this game. It is not a very long game. It is 6, depending on how fast you want to play it, it's anywhere from 6 to 9 hours to play the whole thing. I think I did mine in a 6.5 hour playthrough. These are not long games. But so Redmont is the only kind of, it's like a hub town. There's a map where there are kind of like locations to go to and little pathways to get there. So you're not really visiting too many locations, especially for the size of this game. But the actual town, for being as small as it is, feels very lived in.
Oh, yeah.
All of the NPCs have their own character portraits. All of them have their own names. Most all of them, I believe, are voice acted.
Different voice actors, too.
Yeah. So
I didn't hear any
this
repeats.
Whole game is... I want to say, I can't even remember a point where it wasn't voice acted. There are probably some moments in there.
There's a couple scenes where it's not like an active, like, I don't want to say cutscene, but scene where you're talking to it, where they're not voice acted, but the grand majority of them are voice acted.
For a handheld game, wild amount of voice acting, like actual voices.
Yeah, I honestly, the first time playing this, I did not even know it was voice acted. I was expecting to just click through dialogue and read, and so when they started talking, I said, oh, is this like a special intro? And the game kept going.
Yep. So
it is very heavily voice acted. If you don't like playing games because you have to read too much text, like, I would not worry about this game, especially being as short as it is. The town is very lived in, and I actually wanted to talk to all of the NPCs to see what they had to do. Like the drunk guy in the bar, his dialogue is very, very different. You know, it's like old school Pokemon where you go talk to everybody, and it's like, hey, you look like a bug catcher. You are a bug catcher. Every bug catcher talks the same. They're not really named. They didn't start naming them until the second series, right? No, they named them in the first one.
Well, bug catcher.
Bug catcher Bryan. Is that what?
That wasn't until second.
I can't even remember. It's been a while. I mean, there are some named ones, but I mean, even in Pokemon, like, you'd walk around to a Pokemart and talk to a random dude in there. He wouldn't even have a name or a title.
No.
So
you just say some sus shit.
Yeah, and it's very common for RPG games to not give names and portraits to NPCs because there are so many of them, and a lot of the times, like, they throw them in there to, like, make a space feel full, but putting NPCs in just to have NPCs in a space kind of makes it feel empty at the same time. So I wanted to point that out of how well that town was done. But so we go to the mine. We meet Chester at some point. He wasn't actually missing. He was working for Count McGuire, who he wanted to basically prove himself and become a knight and be something great. And Count McGuire is pretty much a villain who's overall kind of shitty.
Also a dipshit.
Yep, and he's taxing citizens like crazy, and the mayor's kind of like going along with it, because I guess the mayor's like, what am I supposed to do about that? I guess I'll just go ahead and do it. And it ends up, Count McGuire is looking for 4 statues to reawaken this evil demon devil lord named Galaban. So Chester, wanting to prove himself, becoming a knight to this count, ends up finding out that the count was the reason that, what's it called? Genos Island. Everybody on Genos Island was killed by monsters. Ends up finding out the count was responsible for that. And his parents were on that island. So the count is responsible for him and Elena's parents dying. And at that point, he's like, fuck this guy. He wants to kill him. He does try to kill him at some point, but Aldol stops him. There is a church in the town where you meet Bishop Nicholas, and he's very encouraging. He's like, yeah, find these statues. We got to figure out what's going on with the mayor. We got to figure out what's going on with the count. Like, something weird's happening here. We need some more information to know what's going on. He ends up revealing himself as a follower of Galaban.
Also a dipshit.
So he's pretty much been manipulating everybody behind the scenes to do all this work for him. I can't remember, was the count aware that Bishop Nicholas was...
No, he was a dipshit dummy.
Okay, I couldn't remember if he was aware that the bishop was not so forthright with his information.
He basically turns into like a cowardly, like, so God save me, Adol, because like...
Okay, yeah. The bishop's been like pulling the strings the whole time, and there was I think a nun or something like that. I can't exactly remember what her name was, but early on in the game, actually, in the mines, one of the first like mini bosses you fight is this like masked bladed warrior who like kicked my ass the first time because I did not know what was going on. And you do that battle a couple times. It's one of those repeat mini bosses and has a dialogue and ends up being the nun. Like at the final battle, you find out that this masked warrior is the nun, and I think she goes through some kind of like redemption arc.
She ended up smoking her. She's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Vader.
Yeah, kind of Vader-ish.
Sort of redemption
once she's already got her
arc,
ass kicked, she's like, you're a good person. I just
as she's like disintegrating, she's like, I realize I've now done wrong. Like one of those kinds of things. But the reveal, like when I was playing this game initially, I wasn't quite expecting the bishop and the nun to be anything of relevance.
Twist. Sister Nell.
Especially when you first meet them, they're so like pleasant. And they're like helping you.
I mean, I guess I should have known, because every single RPG you kill God at some point.
Yep.
And so if there was a church involved, like I probably should assume the church is bad. I just didn't think so in this one.
Well,
at the same time, like, I mean, at the same time, like they already hand you the bad guy in the beginning, and that's never a good sign because it's never the last actual bad guy. I don't know. Maybe I was just enjoying my time. I was like, I'm just gonna look at these pretty graphics and whatever.
I've played some RPGs and I didn't really see a lot of the twists and turns coming, so maybe I'm just stupid.
I think what makes this one stand out a little bit is the town is like so intricately part of the story on this one. So like Barry kind of touched on it. The town's like very lived in, but like the whole story is about like this little town just getting by, and the characters in it kind of making it like a living city too. And they all have their own little. Some are just trying to get through their day. Some are trying to summon a god to kill everyone. Spoiler, but it makes you kind of like see past them and like the charming little town. You're like, oh, you're not gonna turn to a evil god summoning asshole. Oh, yes, you are. Never mind.
Yeah. So I do remember actually when I played
they all
this.
Seem so helpless too.
I remember when I played this game, like I went to the church because I had to for the dialogue. I don't go in churches and games. If I can avoid going to the church, I don't go to the church. So. Because every single time there's like a pastor or a nun or a bishop or whoever or a cardinal you gotta talk to, they always got the most boring dialogue on this planet. So I just avoid the churches, but you've got to go into the church for this one for the story. And I remember going to that and being like, all right, I'm leaving, like, see ya. And I completely forgot about him. So when the reveal happened and he was like, "It's me, Bishop Nicholas. I'm bringing back Galaban," I was like, "Who is this guy? Did I miss something?" Like, I completely forgot about him as a character.
There's little parts in the game where he's like kind of hip and hip with the mayor after like every kind of story kind of advances a little bit. So you can kind of, once you realize that he's the one pulling your strings, you can kind of look back and like retroactively see like, oh, this is where he was like trying to get the deets.
Yeah, they established him very early on as like being relevant in the town and having some sort of role. But I don't feel like they stuck on him so much into the story to make you think about him too much.
You save him in the mines, I believe, with the mayor.
I can't. I don't think he's in the mines. I think he's the one that tells you he's stuck down there.
Yeah. Okay, you have to go talk to him before you go in the mines. Yeah. The nun twist was clever. Like,
the nun one was interesting. Anyway. But I just think that they did a good job of taking one step back. It doesn't seem that surprising that, you know, the two religious people in this game are the ones who were trying to bring back the devil. But while you're playing the game, like, I'm not focused on this one character because he's not really focused on so much in, like, the cutscenes. Like, especially early on, they're like, oh, the mayor, oh, the count, we gotta find Chester. Like, relevant characters, especially with Dogi being, like, the main character's best friend. And then having a relationship with Elena as a childhood friend, and then this whole mystery behind Chester. Like, we're so focused on Chester and what's going on with him that I lost the bishop in the background, and he ends up popping up as, like, the bad guy. So it was kind of cool to be like, oh, okay, the guy that is pulling the strings in the shadows has kind of been in the shadows the whole game, and it doesn't really feel like a surprise, where it's like, boop, and you're like, who is this character? I only missed him because I was just like, you know, fuck the bishop, I guess. but, you know, looking at it retrospectively, you're like, okay, they did a good job of writing him into the shadows, but keeping him prevalent in the story for you not to quite suspect him. At least for my experience.
I agree.
So
I feel like they did a really good job overall with the story in this game.
And usually these games aren't really known for their stories. Really? So when they're good stories, like, they're good stories.
I mean, that's the thing with this one. All the characters, they do such a good job of fleshing them out just through the dialogue. And then I think hearing them speak also kind of adds that personal, you know, development. Like, every character is well-rounded. Eventually, you like, I keep wanting to say doggy. The doggy? Is that?
It's Dogi.
Dogi. He's so like, the dub, I think, doesn't do him a lot of justice, but at first I didn't really care for him. By the end of the game, you're like, he's out here just trying to help his town, help his people, help his friends.
He's a little overbearing at first, and I think a lot of that is due to the voice acting, at least the directing for it. I don't know whose choice that was.
Horrible, but I think this is the voice actor.
Yeah, it's a little overwhelming, and you're just like, whoa, doggy. Like, whoa, doggy.
But no,
especially like opening scene where it's like, they just got that thing going on for being like a 17-year-old. Like, bro, chill.
No,
that was
chill,
wild,
please chill.
Yeah, there is some critique to be had in the writing, and granted, like I said, I haven't played the original. I don't know how much of the writing, or at least the translation, or what was going on with it was this a direct translation? Was this an interpretation? Especially with games that are made in another language and then, you know, translated, there is some room for error.
I hope there was.
Final Fantasy is known for this one.
She's like, last time I saw you, you were 17. She's like, I was 17 last time I saw you. He's like, yeah, you were. I was like, I was playing at work with the sound on in the break room. Everyone's just looking at me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's too many like ones that maybe like go, but that was definitely one of them.
That one, and then like when you go to like when she gets you the room or whatever, and he's like, man, she looks like really good. Anyways, man, have a good night. Like, what are you doing later, bro?
Yeah, that's very indicative of like 90s, early 2000s writing, especially with Japanese ones.
Yeah,
it still bleeds into today because you know, like especially across the world, like culturally, there's a lot of things different that like we're not used to, and other places like they're not used to. So there is some discrepancies between what was written and what we get. Yep. So
to circle back though, that guy becomes fairly lovable.
Yeah, he did kind of becoming okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do a good job of
starts off kind of a little
fleshing the characters out, especially
overbearing.
Good comeback.
I think Chester is one of the best characters. Oh, yeah. I was very impressed with him, especially the voice acting on him. I think the voice actor did a phenomenal job with Chester.
I think he was the best one. I think he was the standout.
Chester is an interesting name choice, but besides that fact, like I think Chester was one of the best parts of the story in this game.
you felt really sorry for him the whole time. Like, and you can understand, even when he was in quotations a bad guy, you could see his point of view and why, like, you know, I would do that probably too if I had the power to go get like total revenge on not just like my family but my entire people getting wiped out. Like,
and speaking on Chester, he basically at the end of the game decides to, I guess, not make amends, but like
do the right thing,
understand what was happening and what needed to be done, and decided to make the choice himself to pretty much sacrifice himself to make the killing blow for Galaban, who is, you know, you fight Galaban at the end and it doesn't quite kill him. And the only way to kill him is to basically blow him up. I think you have to
use the statues to like seal him away.
You had to like use the statues and like use a sword, but like somebody had to use the sword. It wasn't like you could do it and then get away.
Yeah, sword had to like seal it.
So Chester makes the choice to go ahead and do that and sacrifice himself for, I guess, everybody on the island. I mean, like, you know, his whole character is he wanted to prove that he could be someone, because, you know, him and his sister didn't really grow up as like rich or anything. They didn't have parents.
Doofus Mayer's the one that like took care of him. So like,
yeah, so I mean, his whole goal as a character was to like, you know, he wanted to be like a noble knight who like protected people, and so at the end, like he did end up making that choice of I'm going to protect everybody, and it was a selfless choice at the end of the day, because like he doesn't really get the recognition like a normal nobility knight would have, right? Like a lot of the times people become knights for like the high praises and the stories sung about them, but Chester's like, it's what I gotta do, you know? So I think his entire character arc was very well written in comparison to some of the other things that were written. But like he's a really good character to come out of this.
I feel like he pops up at really good times in the story too. It's like he's going for the same objective you are. Once you figure out like you're trying to get these statues, he's trying to get these statues, and he's kind of like, you know, a rival to you throughout the game. And he's never like annoying. You always like kind of see like, damn, bro, like team up with us. We're on the same team here. And he's like, no. And then you see like his true motivations come out, and you're like, I'm gonna have to fight him to stop him, because he ain't gonna stop. Like he's gonna do whatever he has to. So.
And then tying him into Elena and having her become such an important character, they do a great job of making her feel important because she's, you know, Dogi's friend. Having the villain tied to her was a cool call.
Yeah,
also.
I was worried
it makes him more of like, I love a sympathetic villain.
Yeah.
So he's like a really well done villain.
I was worried she was going to get annoying at first, but not too bad, actually.
I did forget to mention, once the bishop reveals himself as being like the evil character, he kicks your ass and takes Elena as a captive to be the final sacrifice.
Yeah.
To bring back this devil god demon. So
yeah, overall, man, definitely like think they did a great job with the story, and I wanted to keep playing the game not only because it was a very fun game, but I cared about everyone in town. I cared about helping Chester find his way, so like they did a great job and didn't overstay. Like it was a short game for sure, but felt very like a lot was going on in it, and it was never overwhelming.
I think that's almost more impressive to have this much meat on the bone for a story about one little tiny town and make you care that much.
Yeah.
They did a great job. The story's awesome.
And especially being such a, you know, under 10-hour game, I didn't feel like the dialogue time outweighed my game time. A lot of the times, like, there's so much dialogue in some of these games and so little gameplay that's like, I'm reading more than playing, but this one, with being so short and them compacting so much into a story and still giving us enough time to have a really satisfying play time, was very impressive.
Initially, that was a concern because it is pretty dialogue heavy initially, but it balances out very nicely.
High marks.
To end it, I will point this out as surprisingly one RPG that does not have a desert area.
Ooh.
I know.
Hey, yeah.
Or a sewer.
You don't kill a rat.
There's no rats. Yeah.
There's a mine, there's a castle, there's an ice mountain, a church.
Yeah.
The ice mountain was long.
Ice mountain was
But there's no desert, so...
Oh, really quick point of contention to bring up here. How do you guys feel about the silent protagonist? Because apparently in the original Ys, he's not silent. Like the original Ys 3 release. Do you think that hurt or helped or made a difference?
I no.
I will have a unique answer, so I'm not playing any other games. It helps you kind of, if you're picking up in the middle of the series, though, not really feel too much of a certain way about him. Just kind of use him as a vessel to tell the story and play the game that you're currently in.
Well, I thought it was interesting they had like narration for what he was doing and what he was saying. Like, it was I've never seen that in another game where I could think of where they have a voice narrator that basically says like, oh, he reaches out and grabs or whatever.
Yeah, I know.
It was interesting. I've never really seen that before in another game.
It's like Adol explained the situation to the mayor because the mayor.
And it's a voiced narrator. It is interesting. I get it's a role playing game, so you're playing as Adol, but for him not to have a voice and just like through narration, it's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't played. Like I said, I haven't played the original release, so I don't know.
Yeah. You have it, right?
Yeah.
I want to play it like really bad, especially after playing this.
I used to have it on both systems.
I used to have it on TurboGrafx CD.
Rip.
Yeah. I would love to have 1 and 2.
Pull one out.
Ease 1 and 2 would be a game I would buy and not have a console for.
I did.
I've said it here.
Pull one out.
That doesn't ever happen.
Pull a G Fuel out.
Because I don't want to buy a TurboGrafx. Those are expensive.
Unfortunately.
I'm not buying it for one game. Anyways, let's move on. Let's move on to the gameplay. So the gameplay of this video game.
Did ya?
It is an action RPG. It is a lot of jumping, a lot of button combination to do some special moves, to do a normal attacks. It does do kind of an isometric platformer style, also side-scroller elements to it, sometimes top-down, depending on where you are. So it does change dynamically with the camera. It is a lot of narration and a lot of narrative and a lot of story, but like I just previously said, a lot of time to game as well. And they're kind of in chunks. I would put this in chunks too, because it'll be like a big chunk of story and then a big chunk of just game. And then you'll get to another story part that's a chunk. And then you'll get back to the game, which is chunk. So I suppose if you don't like that style, but the game is so short, like it's also not noticeable.
Right, you're not sitting there for 2 hours watching.
Like I've been in this mind for a long time, and we finally get to the story break of the narrative where they get to start talking, and I say, "Oh, thank God, my hands!" You know, it's on a PSP, so
Yeah,
like it gives you those breaks to like stop jumping around in a mine shaft. The mine is actually, I would consider the tutorial dungeon. It is the first one you get to and kind of learn what you're doing. It also gives us the 2 bosses, like the kind of the mini boss, which is that masked swordsman. It starts with a D. I can't remember what the name was. And then at the end of the dungeon, there's the bigger boss that the Ys games are kind of known for. The statue boss, I would say. So you also, there is like swords and whatnot, normal, but you also get bracelets, and there's 3 bracelets to equip, and this is how you do magic in this game. There is fire, wind, and earth, and depending on what point you are in the game is kind of when you get these bracelets. It's almost a little bit like Zelda in the idea of like once you get this bracelet and that specific power, you're expected to use that magic power to traverse the dungeon in some way and kind of try and figure it out. Was it in this one where you had to use fire to get through ice walls?
You can in this. There's parts of it you can. Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was this game or if I was thinking of another one.
It's this one.
But it does want you. It does want you to utilize the magic that you gain to actually traverse in sort of like a puzzle dungeon way. It's not super heavy on puzzle dungeon though.
No, it's not puzzle heavy, but
they're pretty simple too. It's like light some torches, jump across the gap with the wind.
Yeah, and it's in a way to like kind of teach you how to play. Was this also the one where you have to like? I'm sorry, they all kind of get like meld together sometimes. Did you have to use the wind to like jump and then swirl the wind to a platform? Okay, in the castle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuck yeah, God, yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm slowly. It's been I played this year. It's not been like too long. I played it earlier this year, but I have the memory of a goldfish, so. But it does give you the opportunities to actually use the magic rather than getting an item and never using it again, which happens very prevalently in RPGs. So I like that this magic system is simple in a way where it's not giving you too many options to get overwhelmed with and not teaching you how to use them. So if I'm only using for magic to traverse the environment, I didn't use it too much. I mean, I use the fire blast if I want to like try and hit some damage from a distance or get someone away from me, but I didn't use magic as much as some people wanted to or did.
Surprised. Different experience. I used the wind like hella. Used the wind
when I got the wind. I used it, yeah. But before that, it's the last one you get. So
my first thought isn't really to use magic. So if I'm having a hard time and I'm like, why am I having such a difficult time? I'll switch to using magic to see if it's a mechanic. Which, speaking on, there is a decent. Okay, let me roll back a little bit. There's the bracelets for the magic. There is equipment that you can buy or upgrade by using these little metal shard mineral things that you find while you're doing the dungeons, and you can use X amount of them to upgrade your materials or your equipment. And then, so there's like, I think it's a sword. Is there a shield?
Yep.
An armor piece? Is it just 3 items?
Yeah, then the rest of them are like an accessory you can wear to like, amplify.
There's a couple accessories. There's a couple like one-use items. I didn't end up really buying any of those. Some of them are expensive.
Yeah, I know, man.
I was like, oh,
I didn't buy everything,
expensive.
but I went and found everything. So there is a couple times when you get a new power, you can kind of backtrack to a previous dungeon to get spots you weren't able to access before.
Yes, there are some moments to be able to upgrade those bracelets as well. So you did have to backtrack to kind of upgrade them.
I had PTSD from the last game I played about a difficulty spike, so I went back and maxed out all my armor and stuff. I didn't really need to, so it's not a hard game.
No, there was a decent enemy variety as well, and like some of them are armored, and so the armored ones, like in the Ice Mountain, you would have to use Earth Magic to like break their armor so you could actually attack them. And it's not just a hack and slash. Like, it is an action RPG, but it's not one where, you know, there's a lot of criticisms for action RPGs where it's like, well, I just hit the X button and attack stuff and the game's easy. You can't do that with every enemy in this game. And there are some repetitions of like the types, but as you go on, you'll notice like, okay, I'm not going to be able to use a sword attack against that one. I have to figure out which magic I'm going to be able to use to break it open so I can fight it. So it does require some strategy, even on the smaller enemies. It's not just the bosses, which is interesting. Or you could just skip them. A lot of the ones, like the little boulder guys in the Ice Mountain. I just jumped over them. You know what? It was too much effort for me to kill one, and there was a bunch, so I was like, forget it. I'm jumping over you guys. I don't need to kill you.
The ones I ran from were like once you're in like the last castle and the stupid like jester things that could teleport and shoot bolts at you.
Yeah.
I said, nah, I'm just double jumping over you. Like, bye.
Yep. Also prevalent in Ys games, there is a chain buff system. So like once you defeat enemies, they kind of drop these little items. And the more that you pick up, the more it chains these buffs, which is like an experience buff, attack buff, defense buff, gold buff, where if you keep collecting them, it'll be like, every enemy you kill experience 1.2 times, and then you can keep chaining them up to a certain point. It gives some room for grinding, but this game does not need grinding at all. I didn't grind, and I didn't even upgrade all of my items all of the way, and I didn't have that much of an issue. Granted, I did play on easy to get it done, and this game is considered difficult, but in a fair, difficult way, where it doesn't feel cheap. What mode did you play it on?
I played it on very easy because, I mean, time constraints, but I've heard how difficult this game is. Yeah,
this game is difficult in a sense where, like, it does require you to be very meticulous with your timing on things and figuring out mechanics, but it's not, my gosh, cheap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that is, and in my opinion, I feel like that is kind of universally agreed upon in the community, where this game is difficult and it will give you a hard time, but it's not one that's unfairly did so. So
you can always kind of see what you're supposed to do. It's not going to sit there and have something off the screen kill you, or like something that takes away 1 hit point 1 minute, then 100 the next. It's very like balanced, I would say.
And even in easy, like easy wasn't easy in a sense, where like if you get into a boss fight in the easy mode and you just kind of dick off, like you will die. It's not like you can just stand there and eat all of the attacks from a boss and just slash your way through. Like you're gonna have to dodge and like figure it out too. And in that sense, like it's not difficult, but it does require you to play the game. And it's not an easy mode where, you know, a lot of people are like, well, I don't play easy because it just gives you invincibility, basically. It's like, no, you still have to play this game.
Definitely.
It's just not going to chew you as hard.
Specifically the bosses.
Yeah. The little enemies are nothing. You can just fly through them. It's actually really fun to just fly through the room and just slice everything up and keep going. But the bosses, like, you still have to play the boss fight. You might last longer than a normal mode. It's not like they're different mechanics.
Some of the bosses still on very easy took a ton of hits.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, they still require you to play the game, and it's not like they've changed the mechanics per play mode, but they don't hit as hard. So
that's the biggest thing I would say, because even like all the attacks it gives you, there's so many different attacks. Like, how often do you see an overhead game where there's an actual jump, but there's also like a jump dive down attack? Mm-hmm. It gives you a lot of tools.
You did have to use it sometimes.
That's what I was trying to get at. You have to use them, even on very easy. Like, I still had to use certain attacks to defeat certain enemies. I don't feel like I lost anything from playing on very easy.
No, you can't stand in the way of the hits and expect to take every single one. It's not that kind of easy game.
Yeah, and I thought as far as the combat, like, definitely, I would say simple to understand, but it definitely had an addictive feel of just like, even in I enjoyed fighting like the little enemies, most of them, other than the ones that we had to run away from because we were just annoying. But like, it was fun picking up the loot after like slashing them up, and then you just wanted to keep that loop going. It was very addictive.
Mm-hmm. Well, coming off of the combat, let's go into the sound. Every Falcom game has amazing soundtracks. Just hands down. Every single one. All of them are amazing. Like, I don't think there's a single Falcom game that has a bad soundtrack. And this is a really good soundtrack.
This one slapped for
I was
sure.
blown away, seriously. And I was listening to it like straight, in a fucking conference room or on the floor most of the day. And I was like, this is awesome.
So the original soundtrack was composed by Mieko Ishikawa. I'm saying that first name right.
Sounded good.
This one specifically for the PSP, though, was rearranged by Yukihiro Jindo. It's not really new music, but it is rearrangement. It's a little updated, especially for kind of like what their music is now. It's not going to be PC Engine era music on a PSP. Like, they're going to add some flair to it. That being said, like, Falcom is known for, like, their combat is like heavy, like rock, heavy metal. Amps you up the whole time. But the best thing about this, I think, is not only is like the battle music extremely well done, but like the quiet moments are good. The town music wasn't like up tempo. Like, you're not gonna run into town and walk into the church and it's gonna just be like shredding a guitar. So like
Church of Rock, bro.
Right, like every moment in this game I feel like the music matched, but especially when you were on the combat, like that's where it shines the most. Like, I could just sit forever. And it doesn't feel repetitive. I remember when I played Ys Origin, I remember that one you can play 3 characters playthroughs. And I just couldn't get tired of the music. It would just be the same music playing, but I'm like, this music is so good. And the same with this one, I'm just like, the combat music is so good. I'm just going to, you run into a room and you kill all the enemies, and then you run back and kill all the enemies in the other room. And then you run back to the room you were at and just keep killing enemies because, like, I don't want to stop fighting because the music's too good.
It's interesting you bring up the repetitive of the music too, because the main menu music's in this game a lot, but it's a banger, so I'm all about it. The music honestly reminded me a lot of Castlevania without the organ.
Thought the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like hype, kind of just some guitar shredding with some kind of classical underbeats. It was awesome. The music was fantastic. I have it in my notes as all caps banger.
This music shreds.
Yeah.
So anytime you pick up a Falcom game, you're going to get a really good soundtrack.
I had one specific moment when the music hit like just right, and I was like hype.
Yeah.
Like, walking up to the castle to go confront the dude, like you finally figure out Effer's in there. I'm gonna go get him. And it was like not a super shreddy guitar, but it was kind of just like a hard riff it was playing, but it was like kind of under like the orchestra, but it felt epic, and it was like kind of like a march. I'm gonna beat this motherfucker's ass, and it was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome because the camera was like panning out with it too.
Yep.
And I was like, this is hard.
Yep.
This is hard, bro.
And like they love their guitar, and it's not just like an electric guitar that's just shredding constantly, but there would be some songs too where it would pull out a little bit, and it would be really high tempo, but have this really nice like acoustic guitar.
It's not Power Rangers shredding, but there is some shredding. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounded.
It's shredding, man. It's shredding.
It's like Joe Perry Aerosmith shredding, but yeah.
It's
was
great.
Great though, dude. Like, high marks on the music, no doubt. I think all of us are going to agree the music was incredible.
Yeah. I think that the people who know these games know, but the best thing about these games is people who've never played them and go into it always are just what is this soundtrack?
It's funny. Brian said I had to literally. I was like, damn, this is as good as Castlevania soundtrack.
It's
this
good.
It reminds me of Castlevania so much.
I literally thought that too. It's hilarious. But yeah, I didn't have any experience with this, so I did not know that what we were getting here at the soundtrack. I was like, whoa,
yeah. The earlier set of Ys games kind of are more the style. It's kind of said that they've been getting lazy with the new ones, which I haven't really played the newest one so much to really have an opinion on it, but especially everything in this era, incredible.
Yeah, this shit goes
so
hard.
Good. Yeah. I don't even know, I can't even just say more other than it's really good. And it's one thing to listen to the music without playing the game, and then play the game without the music, but the both of them together, it just kind of changes the experience. Yep.
That's super fair. I think it's incredible on its own, but the combination with the gameplay, it adds that extra cherry on top where it's ooh, it hits just right.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
It's that kind of, especially with the combat music, in my opinion, it's not that kind of music where you can just sit and listen to and just be you nod. I love metal music as much as the next guy, and I can sit there and I have some of my favorite songs that I can just sit there in peace and listen to someone screaming in my face. But the music in this game, I can't sit still. It plays and you're just I gotta be doing something right now. So in combination with playing the game and being able to do that thing in the game while listening to it, it just kind of changes how I experience that music. And it's great. It fits well.
The music was a really big part for me. I was playing it at work most of the time just because of what's going on. But I was on the floor and the sorter's really loud. So I'm let me hook this thing up to one of the Bluetooth speakers we have around. And obviously the PSP is not hooked up with the Bluetooth. But there's a stereo outlet in the back and we have stereo cords everywhere. So I was all right, we plug in the aux. Now I was bumping it on the floor and everyone's what is this? This is awesome. Yeah, it was great. Music's awesome.
Yeah, I think this soundtrack is probably one of the best soundtracks of any game we've done.
I could agree.
I'll
with
second that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of another one that was even better, and all I can think of is Chrono Trigger. But Chrono Trigger was another flavor. I think they were on different levels.
So I would have to look, yeah, but no, it's definitely up there. It's a great sound. I think it's the fact that everyone at the table is yeah, absolutely banger. Says a lot. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I probably would have picked one of these songs for our music episode if I would have known. Seriously,
well,
it's that
now
good.
You've opened it up.
It's
you
good.
did pick a Castlevania song.
Oh no, this game in general, everything blew me away, but especially the sound of music. I was dude, this is great. As soon as I finished this game, I literally texted both of you guys. I was hey, I was sleeping on this game. I was sleeping on this series, bro.
I expected you to walk into my door foaming at the mouth, being so what are the Ys games you got in there? You got any more of them Ys games?
If I wasn't to the point where this time of year where I'm super busy, I probably would borrow a couple from you because I was blown away. Every aspect, but particularly the music.
Well, when you want to play another one, I'll give you one.
But
I'll be play Ys Origin next.
Gotta buy them. Segue.
Thank you for that segue.
So, yeah,
we're not quite there yet, though, Brian. Thank you.
Game sounds and
we're gonna segue not quite into the collecting yet. We're gonna pull back a little bit. We're gonna go into the graphics.
Oh yeah, those are a thing.
It's the graphics.
Do we want to talk about the sound effects or anything? Or
oh yeah. I'm
acting?
sorry.
No, it's okay. I just maybe
we're out for time.
We just kept. And I just kind of stared at y'all and was soundtrack was good. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, it's tough because it is great, but
yeah, as far as the sound goes, definitely the soundtrack itself is the standout. I think the voice acting was serviceable. There was Chester was the standout. I felt for that. I don't think there's anything overtly terrible or offensive to my ears, which is you're gonna have a couple that don't hit quite right. And I think there was some line delivery that was dude's pretty excited for what's going on in the scene right now. But that's for if you know RPGs, it's not a bad one. I'm gonna say that. There's always a couple you go, voice is a little squeaking at the wrong time, or but overall it's serviceable for SAR's voice acting with a couple here and there that did a really good job.
I would say overall it's a good dub.
Oh yeah.
Pretty, especially because if you watch some anime and stuff, it's this doesn't have that.
Oh, dubbed anime.
Yeah. Maybe one or two parts I can think of off the top of my head, but there was never anything that was so egregious where I was right. I almost forgot it was dubbed sometimes.
There's nothing really super distracting.
Look, I'll be the first to admit is when I pick up an RPG, I switch it to Japanese.
Same.
I don't usually give the dubs the time of day. And like that's not me saying I hate English voice actors and think they suck, and that's not the case. They just don't fit.
It has a certain sound to it that doesn't.
For me, it's distracting.
Yeah.
There are very few games where I'll play in English and be very happy with. I feel like Tales of is another series where people kind of get put off by the voice acting sometimes, but it can be done very well. And I feel like this is a similar game to that aspect where like there are really good moments in this game. And overall, it's a good voice acted game, but there are definitely some moments where you're like, ugh, when you hear it, you're like, you got like secondhand like cringe a little bit.
Doubt.
So it does happen.
This one does a pretty good job of staying clear of that for the most part, I would say. And then as far as like the actual sound effects and combat, like most of that was overshadowed by the music for the most part. There wasn't a whole like when you're pushing square or whatever, which like I'll give them, that's good sound design in my opinion, because especially in games where you're hack and slash, the combat is like extremely fast paced and you are like moving and jump. There's not a lot of grunts and stuff. So like, yeah. So good sound design in my opinion.
I'll second that.
Exactly.
For as action heavy as this is, that stuff gets annoying after a while.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So I think it was by choice, and I think they did a good job of kind of like if it was there, I didn't really notice it because I was too busy listening to the soundtrack, and stuff.
But even the spell sounds are cool. Like the fire has that like bassy burn, and the wind sounds awesome. Like the spells sound powerful.
And it's PSP stuff where you can use headphones, so it sounds really good in headphones too. I used headphones while I played this for the most part.
I did not.
I wish I could have. I used a Bluetooth speaker at work.
I guess we all had a different experience,
Yeah.
Plugged into a big speaker.
Bet I had the craziest experience.
The graphics on this are what I would imagine is early 2D, 3D style. I feel like Octopath Traveler gets a lot of credit for being like the 2D, 3D game, but this game looks so good for 2005.
You played Octopath?
Not a lot.
This looks way better to me.
Not a lot.
This looks better than Octopath to me. I'll say it.
And like I said, it's the same engine as Trails in the Sky, which has that similar style of like 2D, 3D. I don't know, like to me, like Falcom was putting out PSP games in this time period that had this style, and it looks so good on the system. It's not like graphically draining, but it's that step above where it kind of blends both of them, where it's like I'm not losing the 2D sprites and really getting that nice 2D experience of like the sprite work. But you kind of get that really cool, like, 3D environment where it kind of twists and turns sometimes on the camera, which is really dynamic.
That was actually one of my favorite parts of playing this game is how dynamic the camera was, and it was never distracting, but it did add to so many scenes in this game where it literally, like, looked like a well-made film at times, where there's certain scenes if you're, like, marching up north to a path, that would be, if you're playing this on 2D, it would just be going up a screen. But this did a great job of kind of like panning out, so you could see the scale of what you were going towards. You could see a landscape. You could see like even the framing and stuff, like the castle's framed center, and you could kind of see like all the chaos around it. It's like, man, this is really good like cinematography here, honestly.
And there's some games like I feel like where you're having a really like deep or epic or big moment in that game, and the camera is just stuck on that square, and it's really all dialogue and kind of like sprite work of like what's happening in that scene, but it does add something to really have that camera be dynamic of panning out or zooming in or like shifting around like while these moments are happening.
There's just little tiny moments that just were added. Like I remember when the bishop kind of reveals himself as like the big baddie, like it kind of zooms in on like homeboy laying there after what's his name? Damn it. The brother.
Dogi?
No,
Chester.
After Chester kind of gets smoked by you, when like the bishop kind of reveals himself, and like, it just zooms in like super towards him, and it kind of like it does. The camera comes up behind where you're all kind of crouched together, like witnessing him reveal himself as like the big baddie, and it's like it just adds so much dynamic that didn't have to on a PSP. It's like pretty damn impressive, honestly.
It was cool,
and the fact that it's like hybrid 2D, 3D, like you could have very easily just kind of phoned it in and kept it screen based, but. Like, hats off to making this truly feel 3D in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was cool. One of my favorite things I did, because I did it by mistake the first time. When you're climbing up in like I think it's the second dungeon, you're like jumping up these squares that go up high across the bridge. If you fall off, it zooms in. So if you do like the slam with the sword down, it zooms in. You can just smoke all the little dudes chasing you. Did it by mistake the first time, but I was like, that was a really cool effect with the camera. And like you're saying, they didn't have to do that with the portable game. Like it's so polished. Everything about this game is just so damn polished.
There was a lot of work put in this for being a remake.
It feels like it.
Yeah, it is a complete overhaul.
Which when you look at the industry today, it's like, take notes.
Yeah. I was literally going to say, like, this is how you do a remake. Just
That's an episode
lovingly
for later.
From the ground up. It's
on the docket.
Take notes, y'all. Like, for real.
I do want to point out, too, the environments are very clear to traverse. And I really, and I go back to the town, there's so much, like, love put into that town. Like, when you're just going in people's houses, and every RPG has this, where there's a town and there's buildings where you go into, and it's just, like, the same cookie-cutter room where you got the bed, and you got the stove, and you got the whatever. And, like, everyone's house to me felt different. It was decorated all different. You've got picture frames. You've got jewelry boxes on dressers. You've got food hung up. Decorated rugs. Like, it wasn't just like a 2-color rug with like a little, tiny gold square around. Like, they were detailed pixel rugs. Like the pixel work and just the environments of these houses were so intricate. And I just wanted to look at everything. And like, there was one, I went into a house and like, you can't interact with really anything, but I was like, can I open this chest? Can I open this little box? What can I do something with this? And like, it makes me want to like interact with all of it. Cause it was so like, it was there. And I was like, I know what this is. It's very clear. It's a chest. Let me open it. And I can't, but it felt lived in and it felt like personal.
Yeah. Everyone's rooms and stuff felt different, which like, they didn't have to do that. That's going out of your way to make a quality product, and like that's
so polished, man.
Yep.
Everything about this damn game is so polished. For me, the big standout was the bosses. Like every single one of them, so detailed and like unique looking. Like the creature/monsters, they all looked great. They looked super unique. It was fun just to look at the boss fights and see things wiggling on them or shooting at you. Or
this might sound a little more critical than I intended to. But it was a design choice. I noticed that the bosses were like more 3D than the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if I loved it. I'm not going to sit here and say I hated it and it was distracting, but it was something noticeable.
It was the mini boss moments where you have to fight like the masked swordsman, Chester. There was another like bone warrior guy, I think. I can't remember exactly what it was. But it would be like a sort of mini boss where it would be like almost like an arena. It was kind of like the camera was normal, top down arena square, and you'd have to traverse that square to fight them. I do remember the one, like the very first like main big boss you get in the mines was like this like watery looking woman, and she's at the back of the arena, and there's a platform in front of you, and she's shooting these like purple frisbees at you that you have to like jump over on different levels and like try and figure out like what to do in that space, and it was all like in a 3D space. And it kind of differentiated like the big bosses from like the smaller ones. I don't know if that was like a conscious choice to be like, we're going to have the big statue bosses and the big bosses be more of like a 3D element than some of the smaller ones.
They look like PS1 graphics.
All the humanoid bosses were pixel art and all the monsters were like 3D.
Yeah.
So I don't, like I said, it sounds a little critical. It wasn't too distracting. I'm going to say it was noticeable, though. It was, choice.
I would agree with that.
It's a bad choice, but it was an interesting choice, I'll say.
I would agree with that.
That's the only time I felt like the graphics didn't fit. Because like, the environment and your character looked like they had the same style going for them. Then there's this big PS1 style blob in the middle of the screen where I'm like, oh, okay.
Was Galbara like that too? Okay.
It was like PS1 style.
I couldn't remember which one was a big boss. There's a lot of bosses.
Fair. They look better than PS1.
They're kind of polygon.
They're PS2.
I mean,
it's PS2 era.
It's pseudo 3D or whatever, but I thought
we talking cool. PS2 cutscene quality.
GTA 3-ish, I guess.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
I mean, there's some really good 3D graphic PS2 games, and there's some really bad ones too.
Right.
So I mean, that's just kind of the era it came out.
It sounds way more critical than I intended to.
I would agree it's noticeable, but I don't think it was enough to be off-putting.
It's
so
interesting.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think the game looked fantastic, and it did a great job of blending the two. Like, difficult to do, by the way, 2D, 3D, and even platforming wasn't an issue. It's always the thing I worry about when you start to get this art style is like
okay, my guy's kind of flat, but he's kind of not. I gotta jump to this platform. It's almost isometric camera. I'm trying to traverse. I never felt like the traversal was too difficult. I had a couple times I had to redo a jump because I screwed up. I was either going too fast or I didn't time my jump correctly, or I double jumped when I should have single jumped. I never felt like the camera was at fault or the art style was at fault at all, though, which that's impressive. Because I hate platforming, guys. Spoiler.
There's a no fall mode also, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, I didn't know that until after I was reading a guide. I was like, hey, you can turn no fall. I was like, I'm not doing that.
I did, just for time constraints. But some of the backgrounds are really nice too. You think, you get in this dungeon, sometimes they're kind of brown, kind of gray. But some of the backgrounds look very nice. Not quite like, painted backgrounds, but they have that kind of look to them. Very nice environments.
Just gonna sound stupid, but I want to compliment the lighting. Like you talked about igniting torches earlier. It's kind of like a puzzle. Like watching the glow from the torches was actually like, it's just another detail they didn't have to put any effort into that they did. It's like there's actual shadows around it. Like it's really nice. Like everything is just so intricate.
Oh, and quick shout out to the character portraits too. They're big, they're nice. Mm-hmm. Even like this characters that they did not have to spend time on, like townsfolk, they'll look really well done. And they're all huge. They'll take up, a quarter of the screen.
I only had one that I didn't like how he looked.
Who?
It's because I think his name was Andy. And it's like the first guy you encounter in the mines, his lips are like freaking
like
a donut. Yeah. And it's like, what did they do to this one? Other than that, they look great.
God.
You know what I'm talking about right now? Exactly.
I like the mayor when you first find him because he's all bloody.
Yeah. No, like they all look great. That one just clearly like, they went for like a different style with his mouth, and it's a little distracting.
Hold on a second.
You know which one? You know which one I'm talking about?
I don't want to know which one you're talking about.
I don't want to say that it looks like a butthole, but it looks like a butthole for his mouth.
And
I
Andy?
think his name was Andy. I might be wrong. Hold on. He was like a big doofus, and he's like, "Oh, thanks for saving me." Paul, not Andy. Excuse me.
Paul, not Andy. We are so close.
Paul was the only one I felt like that was a little distracting because of his mouth. They did a artistic choice I don't necessarily agree with.
Duck lips, bro.
We're gonna say a donut. It looks like a donut to be polite. It looks like something else.
Pig nose.
A butthole.
It does look like a butthole.
Is that a butthole?
Everyone else looks great though. Like, let's talk about that. Everyone else looks fantastic. Everyone else has like a unique art style.
No, it looks like what's that thing that was super popular for a long time, and I don't know what it is, but people would be putting jars over their lips. And then, like, I don't know what the process was.
Like
you know what I'm talking about?
Jars and people doing it on their back and stuff.
Yeah, but people were doing it on their lips. What's that shit called?
They were doing it on their lips, and it would, like, pull everything up to it, and then they would pop it off, and their lips would be huge. That's what it looks like.
It does look like that.
Yeah.
And at first, I was like, oh, he got hit in the mouth. His mouth's swollen because he's in the mines. And I saw him in town later. I'm like,
no, it's just him.
Your mouth still look like...
It's just him.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool how the portraits totally take up a quarter of the screen. Like, they're all prominent.
That mouth does take up like a quarter of the screen.
Well, okay, let's move on from butthole mouths and let's go into the price and collectability of this game.
That's a segue.
I do have to correct myself. This game did come out in 2005, but that was the Japanese Windows. It was ported to the PSP in North America in 2010, so let me make that correction. This version did come out in 2005, though. Just a correction on there. This game came out in standard. Actually, I honestly don't know if it came out in a standard or if it was just a premium. I honestly don't know.
Really?
But I've seen sales for just the game, and then there is a premium edition. The going price for just the singular game, I don't know if there are two different SKUs. That's a you question, because I don't know about
My
stuff.
app says there's two different SKUs.
There is two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Game iApp.
Different barcodes. I don't know. Yeah.
Two different barcodes?
Yeah.
I mean, I
SKUs,
couldn't tell you if the game and the box have a different barcode. I don't know. Beside the point, just the current prices for the game right now, box manual, there's a manual for this, box manual, PSP, UMD, used, they're about $80 to $100 complete. Probably less depending on if you're missing something or it's not as good condition. As far as just the singular game, I didn't see anything recently that was over 100. A lot of 99s. The premium edition, which includes an oversized outer box, an art calendar for 2011, and a soundtrack that includes music, 23 selections from the game, and then 10 additional arrangements that is also included in this packaging. This one is anywhere between 120 and 200. I want to say more so on average that range is about 130 to 150, but I have seen some go for like 112. I have seen some go for 200. So I don't know if that is due to box condition. Some people are really picky about their box flaps not being creased. I don't know. But that's kind of the range. So like one step up and you probably could get a premium edition for an extra 10 to 20 bucks.
Yeah.
I don't really know condition quality, but for just the game, like you're looking at about 80, 90, 100 for just that game. All things considered, I don't know if that price is going to go up or down with the Switch release. I don't know if it's even confirmed if the Switch release is going to be physical. So that's just something to keep an eye on if you're interested in this game.
So the Japanese version is physical for now.
It is for now?
Yeah. And then the other ones...
It's quite possible they might not do a North American release and just do kind of a worldwide English version.
It says on their website, it said Europe and America TBD.
Okay.
So hopefully...
Because I know a lot of these games coming out, especially for Switch recently, like they're not releasing them in like ESRB.
Yeah.
It's got to go to PlayAsia and buy them.
Yeah, PlayAsia, and you have to buy them. Like Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, like they didn't officially come out in North America as an ESRB title. They're just they're completely in English. They don't have a specific rating because they're all regions. So it's possible this could be like that. I don't know. If you don't care about buying it physically and you want to play the game, it is, I believe, full price on Steam, $15. I don't know if that's the sale price or not. It's probably about $15. I
think it's retail, yeah.
Okay, so if you're interested. As far as total sales, don't know how accurate this number is. You never know with the internet. Take it with a grain of salt.
The internet doesn't lie.
Yeah, the internet never lies. Total sales... 150,000 worldwide. Supposedly, North America is 90,000 units. Japan is 40,000 units. That's a little that math doesn't add up. Anyways, the North American one is under 100,000 units, and that's between the standard and the premium.
Yeah, because PSP didn't sell horribly, right?
No, PSP didn't sell horribly, but
Niche for
it is kind of niche,
especially back then. Yeah.
Because wasn't this originally released on Windows first, and then they brought it over
2005,
to PSP?
Yeah.
So I wonder if that took sales away also, but still.
I mean, you gotta think.
Well, I don't. Okay.
This premium editions, there's probably not a whole lot of them out there.
No,
right?
so the Windows was 2005 in Japan. The Windows didn't get a worldwide until 2012. North America got it in 2010. So there was a 2-year gap between being on PSP and being on a digital platform.
Interesting.
So
that's a low number, dude.
Yeah. Still under 100K is wild.
So we're at under 100K for this title. There are many games out there that have many more copies that are much more expensive than this.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy too because this is part of a pretty successful franchise at this point.
Ys is a successful franchise in a very weird way.
Yeah,
it's not like it's like Atelier games. Like people who like those games like those games, but they're not like going to be mentioned on.
Sure, they're not breaking the sales charts. And
stuff.
Like
I honestly don't even remember where the trailer for Ys Nordics was. But it's not going to be on anything like TGA, like we've been talking about.
It's not like second tier.
Not
RPG.
including spin-offs. It's not B tier. I mean, it's a really good series, but it's one of those series that's like been locked in for a long time, and it's not going to be making, record-breaking sale, millions of dollar charts, whatever. I mean, you got YouTubers who, make content and really love the series and push it out there like Happy Console Gamer does. Like, he's a huge fan of this series because this is a really good series, but it's not one of those where, like, you're going to find people...
It's not mainstream.
Yeah. So, same with the Trails games, and it's kind of Falcom sits in a very special niche where they can sustain themselves and people are very happy with the games, but it's really hard for new people to get into it. In my opinion, new players,
it's intimidating.
New players of the genre, if you've never played it before, they don't gravitate toward ease.
That's like, I know you're really big on a lot of them, and it's something I'd like to get into because like I have a similar taste for these games, but it is intimidating when it's like, oh, this is the 16th one, and this is the 5th one this year, and I'm like, like it's intimidating to get into it. That's one of the reasons why I didn't start this series initially because it's just so far along. But
80 to 100 for the game. About 130 to 150 for the premium edition. Premium edition comes with a soundtrack and an art calendar. That's all that's extra. I don't know which one of you want to start, but 80 to 100 for just the game, 130 to 150 for the premium edition.
I'll go first. This feels like a no-brainer for as popular and beloved as a series this is. It's not like you said a mega, but there's people that like, if this ever does catch on, this is generally regarded as one of the best of the series, if not the best. This is the one everyone's going to go grab first. It's accessible to a degree.
That would be 8.
8? I thought you said this one was like the beloved one.
This one, the initial release is kind of the black sheep of the series. And I think that's why this game is so beloved.
We ain't talking about that. We're talking about this PSP.
Well, that's why you let me finish my fucking sentence.
Whoa, doggy. Whoa.
But yeah, I think this is either way. This is a highly regarded one. You said under 100,000 units sold. The premium, I'm looking at sealed ones on eBay for like $150. Like that seems like a no-brainer to me to get this for like $120.
And like I said, I didn't look at the historical prices to see if it's been up or down since that announcement. So it could have been higher at some point, but at least that's what it is currently. 150 for a PSP game premium?
Sealed one.
Yeah.
Sealed isn't awful.
Especially.
Is it actually sealed though, or is it like secondhand sealed?
It looks real sealed.
I mean, they're making them look real good now.
They can. I stay away from sealed games anyways. Just to prove the point, you pay a premium for seal, and that's not a high number. There's
$20. Yeah, it's nothing.
So, like, the premium PSP games look beautiful on your shelf for one. Like, as much care and love to put in this game, this series, that feels absolutely like a number. I know it is a short experience, but I feel like the quality was there all the way. Like, I'd pay $100 to play this game all day.
They do have a premium edition for all of their PSP releases of these.
Nice.
So
I think it's interesting too. The premium edition is cheaper sealed than the standard.
I think that's just messed up algorithm.
It might be. It's weird.
I mean, the normal game and the premium are so close in price anyways.
I would presume if you're buying this game, you're a collector. Probably pretty fair. It's probably not a whole lot of people in 2023 going out and buying PSP games that play on their PSP.
Not a lot of people going out and buying a $100 game when you can get it on Steam for $15.
And then you look at that premium edition and you're like, it's $20, $25 more. Like, I'm going to just go ahead and buy that one. Like, especially if this type of game, RPG fans like their pretty boxes and stuff. So.
Some people don't care and they do just want to save that extra $30, which is also fair too. They're just like, I just want the game.
Yeah. Well, that's another interesting thing,
I don't want a 2011 calendar and a soundtrack I'm never going to listen to. I mean, that's fair.
The UMD is like $10 less than with the case. Just get it with the case. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, just disc only?
Just the disc. It's like damn near the same price as complete. Yeah. Like, there's no excuse to just keep going up one tier of what you usually buy for this game.
I mean, the price difference between like disc only and premium isn't even egregious.
No, that's why I feel like you're paying a tax to buy this game anyways. You might as well just spend a little bit extra to get the sweet version.
And PSP is I don't think we've had a PSP game yet, but PSP is an interesting one to bring up. I mean, we talk about cardboard games a lot because they just get destroyed, but like PSP games are a whole different category of destruction because like not only can the case get broken, but if that little center disc and that disc gets popped out, you're screwed.
Yep.
It's just unplayable. And there were replacement cases for like the plastic, and some people are really finicky about it's got to be the original one.
I was going to say it's complete in box, but the disc isn't correct. Yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with the replacement ones. Like this shit gets broken all the time. I'm okay with the little completely clear that doesn't have the fat stupid white part on it. But that's little silver, the little silver thing in the middle where it actually holds that disc.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, you can't pop that into a computer. I mean, you can, I suppose. It's not going to do so hot, but there's ways. But like once that, like, if the case cracks and breaks, you can replace it and it'd be fine. But that silver disc is gone. It's ruined. For a PSP, it's ruined.
Yeah, for sure. PSP is a unique collecting experience.
I have seen many a silver disc be ruined.
It's really impressive how much damaged discs there are for something that comes in a protective
Yeah.
It's like,
And not only, and PSP is hard too, because not only is like, they did it right. Like, Nintendo's always done it right with handhelds being on a cartridge. There's absolutely no reason we should be having a disc on a handheld. Because you've got this little square exposure and you get one scratch on that. You can't buff it. You can probably try and hand buff it, but they're so tiny. The amount of pressure that you might need, you could mess up and pop the little silver disc out. But like, these aren't like easily repairable at all. And they're always susceptible to like being horribly scratched.
I imagine if you drop it, it's game over. I've never dropped a PSP game, but they seem so fragile.
Even holding it, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's
very
scary
solid.
too. The disc kind of wobbles. Like
Yeah,
if
it's
you-
the same. It goes
You
cheap.
know, when you
flip
work
it.
at a game store for a long time, you see a lot of PSP destruction.
We did see a lot of PSP destruction. Yeah, like,
They'll come in and you're just like, oh, I did drop it, and everything just blew up, and I didn't even like you blow on it and they'll blow up.
dude brings in gyms and you look at the disc and there's just like decimated. And you're like, hey, bud, like
Yeah, and that's the worst part about it too. Is like you can see like you go buy a PSP game, you need to inspect the hell out of it. That's not one where you can get away with a few scratches. Like,
even
you
more
got to
than
be
GameCube.
careful. You got to be careful. Yeah, even more than game, because they don't. GameCube, at least they have attachments for cleaners that you can put GameCube games in and somewhat get a buff out of them. Like PSP games, like you got to be careful, especially if you're trying to.
You better
collect
help a
them and then make
collector
them
own that
workable.
shit before and took care of it.
I remember when
Yep.
it was new, they had like a portable handheld buffer specifically for PSPs.
Man,
Just like Action Replay made it or something. But yeah, I'm sure it just fucked your disc all up.
I didn't.
I
Yeah.
wonder if you could find one of those still around.
And they made it to where like the casing was like one time proprietary. Like the casing, you can't open it and put it back in the case. Like you have to break it to get that disc out.
Yeah.
And then all you have is a little square that's exposed where you could try and like spin the disc around with the little silver thing and like wipe it off with like a microfiber. But that's the best you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Unless you want to crack it open and try and get something more out of it. But PSP is one of those where you can get the most beautiful looking piece and then have the horrible, horrible disc and just cannot do anything about it. You can't. It's not even like, well, I could try and probably get it to work. No, dude. You didn't inspect that boy upon purchase and you walked out the store and they said you can't return it. It's a hunk of nothing. More prevalent than disc rot, man. This disc rot's not real.
Yeah, I've seen PSP games destroyed.
So it's something to bring up with PSP.
For sure.
But yeah, my final answer for this seems like a no-brainer. As much as we had fun all playing this game, is important to the series as this one is. Yeah, this seems like a pretty easy decision to say it's worth it. Even like the only thing really going against is the length. I know, Brian, this isn't necessarily your type of game, and even you love this game.
Yeah, honestly, every category just absolutely blown away. And like to be frank, I played this game in the worst possible setting ever. Like I played this at work, like on the go, like truly portable. I should have had a bad experience, but I'm not afraid to say it. I don't think I'm mincing my words. This is top 3 best games we've played on the podcast. Like I just absolutely adored this game. I think $100 is, yeah.
What's your other 2 picks?
I mean,
The games
Chrono Trigger and I don't know what comes up there, but
Golden Sun?
no.
Okay.
I didn't hate Golden Sun, but I didn't love it.
So I got 2 out of your 3.
Yeah, oh yeah, you've done
okay.
great. Yeah, you're shooting high.
I keep picking shitters. I actually went through when you were selecting.
Hey, best game and most fun game is different because fuck that. Daikatana 64 was a blast. We were cracking the fuck up the whole time. But no, seriously, every aspect of this game blew me away, and I had zero expectations going in. Like one I didn't even know was an action RPG. I thought it was turn based, so I was like, all right.
Man, I'm really getting you,
Mentally
Brian, when you
prepare
don't do
myself.
your research.
Yeah,
It's
no,
good.
seriously.
I just give you a title and you're like, okay, you don't even look at it. You just put it in.
Yeah,
That's great.
But like for me to actually play this the worst possible way in the world, like literally just at work, like hooked up to a speaker through a headphone jack. Love this game. Like it was great. Looks like it reviewed pretty critically high too. So
Yeah, it really the original release poor, absolutely poor. But this one was 8s and 9s. It was another topic for another time. But it was received well.
I think it's super
Received
fair because
really well.
I was like when I played it too, I literally had to play it in sections and like the save points, I would be sweating it initially, but the more I played it, I'm like they're plentiful. This is fine. But I think the portable aspect of this game suits it really well. You can kind of just clear a dungeon out, clear a couple rooms, go back to work. or, whatever you need to do.
I mean, it also doesn't hurt that the PSP can go into a sleep mode.
Right.
And you don't really have to save.
It's like a built-in save state, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the Steam version's like $15. I don't think, I said I haven't played PCs forever, but I don't feel like this is a better experience on the computer than I think the portability of it kind of adds to it a little bit in a weird way. I adore this game. I think
you can get a Steam Deck.
That's true now. That's true.
I don't know if it's playable on a Steam Deck, but the days of
you can emulate the PSP version on it.
Yeah, it's true. You can just emulate the PSP version on it. The days of being locked onto your desk are over, dude. We can handheld anywhere.
Right. I am curious what the Switch version looks like. I'd be really curious to check it out. But honestly, I still want a PSP version. This is a great game. It's definitely undervalued. Before I even know the low print run thing, it was an astounding yes. And no real excuse not to pick it up. Not my kind of game at all, but blown away in every aspect. I think this is one of the most polished games I've ever played.
So after playing this, are you guys you go out and you see an Ys game on a shelf,
Yes.
you're going to pick it up regardless?
They all play like this. Minus this Super
Sort
Nintendo
of.
and stuff. If it's
sort of.
if it's like an action RPG like this, yeah.
They're all action
Or
RPGs.
even the bump ones. I kind of like bump RPGs.
It's really only the first two.
Yeah, I've got a soft spot in my heart for bump
It's a series
RPGs.
I've had my eyes on for a long time anyways. There's a couple people that I dabble on YouTube and watch that talk this game up pretty high.
The fourth one switched over to the push button to attack type, and the remake just adopted that. So
I'm fine with that. The characters are really interesting. I think it's just one of the most polished games that we've done. From top, I'm trying to sit here and find a fault with this game. And the length, I guess, is the only argument. But for me, it didn't bother me. It was a meaty experience. I played 10 or 11 hours, I think. And again, I had to take breaks and stuff because of work, but I actually had to work at work. But resounding. I'm just 9.5 if I had to grade this game. Absolutely worth it. No questions at all.
I'm really surprised, how
I was blown away.
how blown away you are by
Seriously.
this game.
I literally, as soon as I finished it, I literally texted y'all and I was like, hey, we haven't talked about it yet, but this game was absolutely stellar.
Because I told Nate, I was like, Nate, I think you'll like this. I said, Brian, I don't know so much about.
Well, that's what I think's more
I told
crazy.
you about 3-4 hours. I'm just like, Brian, I think you're actually gonna like this game. 'Cause I know he was kind of nervous about it at first, but I was like, I think this is up your alley.
No, this is literally one of the most polished games we've played. This is great. I think everybody should at least play this game. So a viable option on Steam, but having a physical copy on a PSP, decent price point for comparable games.
Especially given the fact it's a premium edition.
Yeah. I'd say go for that premium edition. The price difference, when you're already spending $100 on a game, what the hell's an extra $50, whatever. Grab
It's
it.
$50 for an outer box, a 2011 art calendar, and a soundtrack.
It's cool
Mine
shit.
are
Soundtrack's worth $150 alone. Dude.
Mine are still
seriously.
sealed, boys.
Hey.
I never even opened them.
Ooh.
Because I don't listen to soundtracks.
Yeah. But to be fair, this is something I would listen to. The soundtrack's great. I think it's a good piece.
That's what I got YouTube for.
Yeah, I hear you. But I would say go for it. Why not? There's nothing wrong with going for a lot of times when you get these premium editions, it's just an astronomical jump. This isn't, breaking the bank to get the nicest edition of this game possible. That being said, even if I had the Switch version coming out, I'll grab the Switch version also. I'll grab this game. That's how much I loved it. I'll buy this game.
Morbid curiosity, Barry. How much did you pay for this game? $12.99.
You're going through your receipts?
Yeah. I probably have the receipt for this buried somewhere in my wall. I don't know. And I honestly, this is one I don't remember. It was not that much. It was very cheap.
So that's an easy. Is it worth it?
Probably a shameful amount of cheap. I know how much I paid for the Trails in the Sky premium edition.
It's comparable, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Trails in the Sky might be more.
How much did you pay for that?
$40.
So that's definitely an is it worth it.
So
You had to pay full price and you didn't have this game.
yeah, I don't have the premium edition for 1 and 2 and 7. Then I would like to pick those up. They're on my list of if I find them, I would like to buy them. But I don't know. I mean, I have Memories of Celceta. I got that one. I got I'm pretty sure at this point I have a special edition for all of them except for the two PSP ones that I'm missing. They didn't. I don't think they had it for the fourth. I don't think they had a special edition for the fourth game. But I would like to if I can find all of the premium editions. I would like to, even though I'm not going to listen to a soundtrack and use a calendar from 2011. I think the boxes are gorgeous. Yeah. They're the perfect size that I want on a shelf. Everything in that PSP era, like, is like, I got the Lunar up there too. Like, it's that same size. I think that's great. There's a game called Fate Stay, I believe. I can't remember if it's Fate Stay or not, but it's Fate something. And that size is wonky and I don't like it.
It is tall.
It's tall and it's skinny and it's not my style. But the premium edition sizes are like the perfect premium edition size, which is the size I wish they would go back to. And they're kind of going back to it a little bit. Falcom actually, with their releases of their premium and special editions now, they're the same size, but they're wider. They're like thick. They're probably about double thick. There's more stuff in them. Yeah, I would, if I didn't already have it, I would be looking for it.
Comfortably at the price.
Yeah, probably $150. I mean,
my thing is, even like just the game itself's worth playing. Like, pay to play this game. Don't really care how you do it. Like, the game's great.
If I went out and I saw this game by itself and I was like, sweet, and I grabbed it, and then I saw a premium edition later, I'd be like, ah, damn.
Yeah, I agree.
I should have got the premium one. I wouldn't have bought this first one if I knew there was a premium one.
Right.
So, like, now that you all know there's a premium one, I would go for the premium one, but that's just my taste for it.
Yeah,
Some people don't have the shelf space for it, and I understand. And, like, if you don't have the shelf space, like, $50 is not worth a soundtrack in a calendar if you're not into it. So just stick with the normal one. But that's just kind of a personal taste based on your collecting style and habits and space availability. So
is the Japanese version, does it have like the English dub?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think
it's significantly cheaper too. The Japanese version is.
No, especially on disc, it won't.
Yeah.
Remember, they had to pay a fan translation.
That's true. Yep.
So.
And I'd say, like, you don't want to really miss the story. I think it really adds a lot because most of the time I play these games, truthfully, there's maybe one or two characters I give a shit about. But like the town and talking to these people is so important and vital to this game to kind of make you feel. I don't think you want to miss that experience. So I think you should buy the North American version, English version, whatever.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far away. Like, even if you're not a premium edition fan, you just want the number one. I think that's worth it too. Honestly,
yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm shitting on the normal edition because like this game's totally worth $100, $95 all day.
My thing was even before I knew the low print. Like, yeah, get this game. It's great. I literally trying to think of one fault with it, and it's really difficult.
Homeboy's lips.
Yeah.
Well, Ys 3. It's not 3 in the title, but it is just called Ys, Oath, and Felghana. For PSP, PlayStation Portable, it is worth it.
Unanimously
Absolutely.
worth it.
Unanimously worth it. I'm slowly getting you guys into the deep, dark hole.
You got me. Call me Big Bass Bryan because I'm hooked, boy.
Oh, no. Next up on the docket, the next episode, Nate.
This one's about the bad guys. The antagonist. We're going to talk about, we each picked 3, I believe. 3?
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
We each picked a few antagonists that we enjoyed.
There we go. You picked a few.
Yeah, and one talked about them and at length, kind of give them some shine.
But we all know the real antagonist of the video games.
Yes.
The Game Awards.
The Game Awards. That's going to happen December 7th, in 2 days after the release of this. Heard it now. No Dreadwolf. Not gonna show.
Shh! Don't put that out there. I need a win. Come on.
Baldur's Gate Game of the Year. You heard it here first on the Collecti-Bros podcast.
I mean, we are the most oppressed group of people on the planet.
We are the most oppressed group of people on the planet.
I know Dragon Age fans are sneaking up pretty
Gamers.
fast.
We're shrinking?
Catching up pretty fast.
Catching up to what?
Most oppressed group of people in the world right now.
Nah, bro,
No.
come on.
The most oppressed?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's the Harry Potter fans for being shafted from the Game Awards for their game that was so phenomenal. It should have been nominated for every single category on this planet.
It's crazy.
The
that
game that
game's-
looks, it really brought back the PS2 to the modern era.
It sold so much, and like everyone I know that played it said it was great.
Game's dog shit. Oh, I'm gonna get
Should at
that's
least got
blasphemy. I'm
nominated.
gonna get fought. Anyways, that's our
Starfield
episode.
got ribbed. I think Starfield got ribbed. Fucking, I'll say it.
Starfield didn't. Starfield got what it deserved.
Starfield got
Starfield got
ribbed.
more than what it deserved.
Ribbed.
It got more than what it deserved.
Hot take.
You know how many more RPGs I could have picked?
Game of the year.
Starfield's not an RPG. Hotter take.
Well, it is according to the Game Awards. It was a walking sim, bro. It should have a new category, best walking simulator.
Action games with RPG mechanics. Bethesda, even Skyrim was. It's not an RPG.
Well,
Morrowind was the last RPG from Bethesda.
also a walking simulator.
Definitely a walking simulator.
I'm gonna admit all that. Anyways,
Villains.
after listening to this episode, hit us with your Game Awards comments, concerns, loves, hates. If it's about Harry Potter, I don't want to hear it and I don't care. Let me know what you know about the trailers because that's what we're here for.
Oh, that's why we're wrong about the Game Awards. We won't agree with you, but we'll listen to you.
Baldur's Gate sweeping away. Here for the trailers. What do you think we're going to see? Real quick,
Amazing
off the
you can
dome.
put an unfinished game out in one game of the year, but hey.
Off the dome, what do you think we're going to see? I think we're going to get a quick Final Fantasy. We're going to get another Final Fantasy because that comes out in 2 months.
Yeah. Apparently Microsoft's going to be there with some games.
We're going to see a no-show on Kojima yet again.
Yep. A Death Stranding 2 maybe, because they announced it. Maybe we'll get another trailer with the baby crying and some black shit pouring all over it.
Wasn't that last year's Game Awards?
Why not? Do it again.
Mass Effect, going to be a no-show.
Definitely going to be no show.
We're going to get the announcement of Modern Warfare 4 with a trailer and release date of January 23rd, 2024 for $80.
Yeah, I guess come out in November, to be fair, so they get the Christmas money.
They got the Christmas money in January. And then Modern Warfare 5 is going to come out in November.
No, they're going to listen to us and take a year hiatus. We're going to get Black Ops remastered.
I can just hear the people closing this episode.
And then they can have a Black Ops launcher as well.
Just closing
as
just closing the episode.
Shut the fuck up.
All right, thank you for listening to this episode of Collecti-Bros. Is it worth it? Ease, Oath and Felghana. Stay oppressed.
Stay oppressed.
Through the glass ceiling.
Break that glass ceiling.
Yep, break it.
Gamers.
See ya.
I'm one of those people now.